So there are some Trump voters that are starting to feel some regret over their vote in 2016. And in the case of one North Carolina Republican, is actually open to supporting Bernie Sanders if he is the Democratic nominee, and of course, if there are no Republicans that decide to challenge Trump. Watch.
Let me say this. For the last election, I trusted Trump. I thought he was going to throw a monkey wrench into the elite establishment and make America great again. And I'm just a regular guy. I'm in sales, and I thought that the whole economy would change across the spectrum. Well, here we are, 4 years later, and I got to say, he lied. I'm no better off. My friends who are regular workers are no better off. The Midwest, the Electoral College, no better off. And so this year, if I don't have someone to challenge him on our side, I'm voting for Bernie. I'm voting for Bernie because he makes the most sense. By the way, I'm paying $387 for a bottle of diabetic medicine. So there are a lot of issues I like with Bernie, and he just makes more sense. Thanks.
So
He just makes more sense. Bernie Sanders. And this is why Bernie Sanders is the most electable out of the entire Democratic field. I know some people are like, no, you got to be kidding me, right? No. Here's Republican, right? This is Republican callers only saying, no, the guy makes sense. He makes sense, and he's for change. This is somebody I think who would have voted for him if he had the opportunity. Instead, what we had Hillary Clinton, who was not for the people. She was for large corporations and the establishment. Now, Hillary Clinton was honest about who she was. We all knew she was for the establishment. She was for big business. She was for status quo, right? Now, Trump lied. And he did so very, very successfully. And he ended up getting a lot of people to vote for him because he thought, well, as this guy put it, throw a monkey wrench into the establishment, right? Now, obviously, that did not happen. It turns out Donald Trump loves the elite, and he's like, I'm more elite than the elite now. No, wait a minute. You were supposed to tear down the elites, at least according to what he was saying before. Now he became the elite. Interesting how that works out. But look, here's the thing. People, and it doesn't matter if you're Republican, Independent, Democrat, most people care about issues, right? And believe it or not, Donald Trump actually ran an issue-based campaign. I know, right? According to studies done after 2016, Trump was found to have run more issue-based ads than Hillary Clinton. Now, what was Hillary Clinton's strategy? Trump bad. Well, yeah, we know Trump's bad. But what are you going to do? What are your issues? What are you going to change? Oh, right. There is no change. Now, this is the same strategy that Joe Biden seems to be adopting now. Oh, look, Trump's an aberration. We need to get America back to normal. This is not normal. And he's right. It's not normal. But if we just go to the way that it was back in 2015, pre-Trump, then everything's going to be fine. The world's going to be great. Well, no, for the millions of Americans struggling, going back to that and making no change forward is just going to create the conditions to create another Donald Trump. And this time, we might not be so lucky as to get someone who's a complete and utter moron. That's no vision, right? No, Americans want somebody who's going to care about them and who's going to actually talk about the issues, right? And look, I understand that there are people in the Democratic Party that don't seem to get that. That's why they're like falling all over Buttigieg, right? Buttigieg is all fluff, no substance. All fluff, no substance. He doesn't have policy positions. And of course, Joe Biden right now doesn't have policy positions and is basically continuing with the fluff, the platitudes. That said, when it comes to issues, we've got more from this caller. Take a look.
Is
Oh, yeah,
healthcare your top issue?
absolutely. I think healthcare is a top issue for what we call human beings, because without our health, we're dead.
Yeah.
You see, so health has to be the top issue for everyone, regardless of party. Would you agree?
Well, Bernie, let me ask you, so you voted for the president in 2016. How did you vote in the midterm elections in 2018?
I didn't.
You didn't. You stayed home.
I stayed home, yeah, because look, let me just put it to you this way. For the last 40 years, there have been 6 consecutive presidents that have favored the rich companies, and I'm a what you call an old-fashioned Republican. I don't go for other type stuff, which I won't get into. So that's why I voted for Trump, because he promised the Midwest is going to regain what it once had. Ask anyone in the Midwest. Ask people in the middle of the country, are they better off? The answer is hell no. And Bernie Sanders is the only person running that's for actual people.
The only one running who's actually going to represent people. Now, again, you go back, he talked about policy, right? Healthcare. Healthcare, prescription drugs. That's a top issue, and it should be a top issue. I also should argue that climate change would be, and maybe a lot of Republicans might disagree with that, but it also should be at least in the top 3. Nonetheless, Democrats, by the way, Democrats ran on healthcare during the midterm. A lot of Democrats, because that was a top issue. And guess what? Democrats swept the House. They won 40 seats. Now, in the Senate, you know who lost? The moderate Democrats, the ones who didn't talk about health care, the ones who didn't talk about progressive visions, right? That was Claire McCaskill. Claire McCaskill, Joe Donnelly. Again, your moderate, milquetoast, establishment Democrats who hated on single payer, they lost. They lost. And look, Medicare for all, that's the plan that Bernie Sanders and progressives are putting forward. Now, it's always been Bernie's plan. At least he's been the one that has pushed it into the mainstream for decades, and been trying to push it in the mainstream for decades, and finally, after 2016, had been able to do so. And now here's a Trump Republican, right? Or at least a Trump voting Republican saying, yeah, you know what? That plan, he makes the most sense. He makes the most sense. I think there's a lot of people out there that feel the same, a lot of Republicans. Now, Fox News knows this, and that's what's interesting about this. Fox News, Bernie Sanders goes on Fox News and crushes it. Has 2.5 million people that watched the town hall. Got a ton of cheers from, working class Republicans. He crushed that. And Fox News is like, I think we made a mistake. I think we did something wrong. And so they have been attacking the Green New Deal. They've been attacking Medicare for all. And the Republicans have been intensely focused on attacking it since. Because guess what? It's popular. It's popular with 70% of Americans who are in favor of expanding Medicare to everyone, single payer. It is a popular position. Back in the Green New Deal, 80% of Americans support a Green New Deal. Even a majority of Republicans. Now, of course, if you ask the questions on policy, strictly policy, more people are receptive to it. But there is this little trick, right? Where pollsters, and we've seen this with a recent new Green New Deal poll, they throw in political labels, right? So it's like, oh, well, AOC is in favor of this policy, and then you see Republican support drop like a stone, right? I think it dropped somewhere to about 50% among people being polled. So if you leave that out and you just talk about policy as what Bernie Sanders is doing, then that's what gets people interested. It's what gets people shaken out of their partisan, BS, which I don't think they should be in that. I don't think that should matter. I think what should matter is policy. If a Republican comes up with a great idea and pushes that idea, I'm in favor of it. Why? Because a good idea is a good idea. I don't care what team you're on, right? And that's how Americans should be. That's how it used to be. That's how it should be again. unfortunately, we have this stupid team mentality, and it actually hurts. The closest example I can get to that is the question of the ACA versus Obamacare, right? So now they asked Kentucky, right? People in Kentucky had this healthcare exchange set up called Connect, right? So now reporters went down there and they're like, hey, do you like the ACA? Do you like Connect? And people were like, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Well, do you like Obamacare? No, hate it. Hate it, hate it, hate it. Well, why? Propaganda. The power of propaganda works. It's super, super sad, too, how that partisanship, that propaganda, spread mostly by Fox News, really gets in the way of actual good policy. But at least there are Republicans and independents who don't care about the labels as much, who care about the policy, and they look at Bernie Sanders as someone who brings these good policies and has a record of authenticity. And I think that's what matters a lot. He's got authenticity. He's got the receipts to back it up. He's been in favor of these policies for decades, and they trust him. Look, this is a great example of why Bernie Sanders will win the general election. Oh, but Jeff, they haven't been blah, 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 right? They're going to call him a socialist and all that stuff. No, when you look at the policies are incredibly popular. And what does Bernie Sanders do better than anyone else? Well, maybe with the exception of Elizabeth Warren. Talk policy. Get people interested in policy. Now, Elizabeth Warren's got amazing policy that she continues to roll out with. But she's not able to sell it very well. Bernie Sanders has both policy and the ability to sell it. And so those are the reasons why Bernie Sanders, if he's the nominee, will win the general election. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.